right? We spoke briefly about Viet Thanh Nguyen's Nothing Ever Dies. Who remember when we were discussing all wars are fought twice, right? The first time, where? Anyone remember?
Battlefield.
On the battlefield. And the second time, in memory, right? So this notion of collective memory, of a war for memory, right, animates some much of Nguyen's good criticism. He's also a novelist, right? So if it wasn't already impressive enough, his first novel, the 2015 Pulitzer Prize-winning The Sympathizer. Who's read The Sympathizer in whole or in part? Oh, fantastic! And
my
I was thoughts on it, but yes, you could.
it was really good. We read this for my works book club. He's, correct me if I'm wrong, he's a triple agent. He's working for the CIA to spy on the Viet Cong, but meanwhile he's actually spying on the CIA for the Viet Cong. If I have it correct.
Good. Yeah. So double agent, triple agent. This is a spy novel, first and foremost, right? And I want to start maybe by I'll catch you up to what you need before we look at our selection for today. But I wanted to begin by just asking a bit about the title. What is a sympathizer?
Anyone believes in a particular cause.
Okay. So
Cause is not probably not.
yeah. So somebody who believes in a cause, right? Who's got a particular set of sympathies, and I think if by cause we're thinking maybe politics.
Yeah.
In your framing, it does have that kind of political dimension. What else do we associate with this word?
I think you're sympathizing with victims.
Okay. So maybe even more generally than if we step back and we took the politics out of it, just a person who's prone to sympathizing.
It
Yeah.
also has a somewhat unsavory connotation.
Good. Yeah.
So someone who won't step out and say what we mean, but is perhaps on the QT. Why? I don't know. It seemed to have that sort of connotation for me. In somebody else, please.
So there's something about being a sympathizer that might suggest, I don't know, clandestine.
Lack of clarity, perhaps.
Oh, all right. So yeah. So some concept that may have not subterfuge, concealment, maybe, right? Other thoughts?
That's hard with it.
Okay. Yeah. So is that
Some kind of concealment, some kind of
Ambiguity.
nefarious.
good ambiguity? Yeah.
The sympathizer is frequently used with a controversial topic or movement.
Yes.
So it's he or she's a sympathizer.
Right. So we could kind of tie this all together. A communist sympathizer, right? We might hear this, but it's somebody who we might not suspect. There's something hidden about this idea. So there's something there's an ambiguity maybe lurking there. It has a valence that's, I don't know, suspicious somewhere buried in that. The sympathizer of Nguyen's title describes himself this way, and you forgive me, I didn't copy this, but I'll read you a couple of sentences to give you a sense of his attitude. You've asked me. This is the narrator debriefing his bosses under some duress. What I mean when I say we or us, as in those moments when I identify with the Southern soldiers and evacuees on whom I was sent to spy, should I not refer to those people, my enemies, as them? I confess that after having spent almost my whole life in their company, I cannot help but sympathize with them, as I do with many others. My weakness for sympathizing with others has much to do with my status as a bastard, which is not to say that being a bastard naturally predisposes one to sympathy. Right? And then he goes on about some bastards that behaved like bastards and in Nguyen's humorous way. But Nguyen's sympathizer somehow manages to occupy both positions. He is the most generic description of the word. He feels sympathy for so many people throughout the novel. He's such a great observer of others. But it's a spy novel too. And its pages are full of that kind of intrigue that you would expect from a good spy novel. So I'll give you a short summary if you haven't had a chance to read it yet. I insist it goes on your nightstand. It's a fantastic novel. But I'll give you a short summary up to chapter 10, and then I want to read a few pages out of that, and we can discuss. So the novel's narrator is a communist spy from North Vietnam. And he's, from a young age, his best friend becomes kind of his handler, right? He's sent south, where he's instructed to join the South Vietnamese army, and he does. And he's very successful. And he becomes the aide to an important South Vietnamese general. And the novel begins in the final years of the war. There's a sense that the South Vietnamese government is collapsing, and people who have the means and the connection to flee the country are beginning to flee the country. Our narrator thinks that this is the moment of victory. He's going to step out of the shadows. But no, he's not so fortunate. He's ordered instead to evacuate with the general and continue to remain a part of this refugee community and spy on the refugees in the United States, right? Just in case there's some kind of work, to come back and start the war again, right? So he agrees. He travels to the United States as a refugee. And while he's in California with the general and a number of other prominent South Vietnamese refugees, they meet a young American politician who connects the general to a figure called the auteur, right? Who's an American filmmaker who happens to be doing a film about the Vietnam War. And our narrator ends up getting a look at the script. And he has opinions on the script. And he goes to the auteur's house at his invitation, skewers the script, is thrown out of the house, and then, much to his surprise, is invited to the Philippines as a consultant on this Vietnam War film. The film itself is a kind of strange mashup between Apocalypse Now and the Green Berets. If you've seen, we saw a clip of Apocalypse Now earlier. If you haven't seen the Green Berets, don't recommend adding it right to the top of your Netflix queue. But when you get to it, it's interesting for its moment. But so there's our film. This chapter that I copied for last week, or that make up your handouts here. Gives us a sense of the narrator looking out at the other actors and crew members involved in this film. And so I'd like to start there for a little bit. And I'd like to think, well, I'm interested in just what catches your attention, but I'd like to think a little bit about what we might learn about filmmaking or representation from our narrator. So with that in mind as an introduction, I'd like to read the first 4 pages or so of the handout here of chapter 10. This is pages 155 to 159. All right, so what's going on in this selection?
So they're in the Philippines filming, and he's been brought on as a consultant. He tries to... they have that one guy that is doing method acting, and he's going to be like acting like he's really in Vietnam, even though it's just a movie. Mm-hmm. They have a woman that everyone is trying to ask out, but she is in the LGBTQ. So, yeah.
Okay. Very good. What else is going on?
Well, for one thing, the narrator is the only Vietnamese person there.
Right.
Walking around surveying these hundreds of people. Mm-hmm. The main actors who are American Idol types or method actor types. And then all the extras seem to be Filipino. And there are no Vietnamese actors because those actors are not good. So they can't represent themselves.
So this is part of the bitterness in an earlier chapter when he first reads the script. The only words, the only dialogue given to Vietnamese characters are screams in the film, and he suggests the presence of Vietnamese characters. he naively assumes that this will mean what?
That they'll be real. And of course, they're stereotypes.
Right.
And it would pass the Bechdel test, or Jay?
Right. Right. So he suggests you should have some Vietnamese characters, and when it finally comes to fruition, it's this complete mockery of his suggestion. Right. It's been kind of run through the ringer. As he blew on page 157, no one paid me is the last sentence of that first paragraph at the top of the page. No one paid any attention to me at all. So I sidled up over to the next table where the Vietnamese actors sat, or to put it more accurately, the actors playing the Vietnamese, right? And then he explains these characters that had been written into the script, and then this was better than nothing, right? Down at the bottom of the page. In my naivete, I had simply assumed that once roles were created for Vietnamese people, Vietnamese actors would be found. No. Who owns knowledge, right? Which feels really important and reaches, I think, back to last week in this our conversations about the battle of the war for memory, and how that's created on, beyond the individual level, at the level of society or nation, and it has me thinking a little bit of wondering what the role of fiction or film or art might be in creating that kind of memory, and where sort of truth and art or our obligations to certain kinds of truths, representation of truths, or might matter in as we think about art and art's role in creating Apocalypse Now, for better and for worse, and does shape some of that cultural memory, as I think the Nguyen is suggesting.
Yeah, and not only victims and who owns the story and who has the right to tell it. So these three Vietnamese people, they're just being used to tell an American story. Like the guy who was killed, Grizzly, along with the one black Green Beret, is being used. The sister is being used to justify the revenge on North Vietnamese, and the little boy is being used to glorify this American story of living in the Midwest happily with the right family. Their stories are taken away from them and just used to tell this white American story.
It becomes almost like the revenge drama rather than. Think back to your comment about this conglomeration of different types of Asian cultures into a single figure, here represented by the actor James Yoon, right? Who is after the Thespian and the Idol, the best known performer on the set. This is on 158. He's in this unfortunate predicament of walking this tightrope. He is incredibly successful in Hollywood, in television, right? He makes films, he's employed, he's got all kinds of great opportunities. At what cost? Right? At what cost for him? He's constantly known here on 158, the Asian everyman, a television actor whose face most people would know, but whose name they could know, like the narrator himself. What's Yoon's role then here? We know literally what his role is in the film, but just in this small section, what is his character offering us?
He kind of sounds like a diversity hire to me. Like, it's that and like one Asian guy and like Pollard Day. I could be wrong. I don't really know what type of shows or movies like he's in. It doesn't really specify it, but it's just, yeah.
Okay, all right. So this notion that you a kind of tokenism, maybe use it a thoughtless diversity hire, right? Because as you suggest, Yoon shows up here as the best known after the Thespian and the figure, but best known in what way? He's recognizable, but nobody remembers his name.
He's best known for selling soap, and yet he's reduced to
tagline that is
Almost embarrassing.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So almost. Right.
Machine.
Yeah. Everything. This kind of this flattening of all culture into this into this amalgamous or amorphous form. And poor Yoon is carrying this burden, and he's successful, which is part of what makes it so maddening. He's successful in Hollywood, at least, right? And find that is successful in that his job, which nice work when you get it, but it becomes at what at the cost of his, authenticity, maybe. In that way. All right, I wanted to ask one last question then about this particular film. Before then, we should move on a little bit, and I wanted to come back to the bottom of bottom of 157 on to the first paragraph of 158, and think about the child actor and where he fits into this. This is Danny Boy. We talked a little bit about his storyline in the fictional film, but what do we learn about this child actor?
He's, first of all, he's non-Vietnamese, and according to the narrator, he looks not at all Vietnamese. He's too round. Or second, his mom has trained him to sing this song, and he says feelings, not peelings. She's trained him a complete, American English rhetoric and pronunciation. So and then eventually he's going to move to St. Louis. So he's an Asian representing the people who can't represent themselves, the Vietnamese, and he's being molded into this American boy.
Okay, so he's a Filipino actor who is successful in his role in part because not because he could pass for Vietnamese, as the narrator tells us, but rather because he speaks English like an American. All right? So what do we do with that?
Is he being used like as a representation, like, oh, the Americans came in and saved everything, and they're gonna bring this kid home and save him by bringing him to America, and like giving him a Yankees hat? Is that what they're kind of showing?
Oh yeah, I think that is the way Nguyen is skewering the sort of plot of the movie, right? Danny Boy, the character, is the kid who gets the Yankee hat, and then he's adopted by Sergeant J. Bellamy's family after, of course, he dies in the war, and he becomes, that's how he's quote saved from it. But I want to think a little bit about the actor, the child actor who's
Make an argument. His mother's already started that project. That's what she wants for him. She doesn't want him to grow up in Ethiopian, and she wants him to be on Broadway in America.
okay.
And the span for her is a one to imagine. To wait for her to take the next step in that project.
Right.
That she's got a trajectory that runs through this movie to Broadway.
Okay.
She's in Egypt. I mean, that's not she. Or you make an argument. She's
Okay.
actually being authentic. She knows what she wants for her kid.
All right, and she had launched her
Position was underway long before this kid got this.
right. I mean, this is almost certainly so. What's the actor's name? He's Danny Boy. Danny Boy is his character.
Well, he kind of is absorbing everything that's around him, and he takes on the method acting. He wants to only be called Danny Boy.
Right. And the narrator. I mean, you'll forgive me. I accuse myself of being too clever here. On 158, he demanded to be called Danny Boy instead of his name, which I could not remember anyway. I'm not sure. I'm interested in the narrator's comment though about not being able to remember the boy's name.
Or just like it, what you said just made me think about like identity and like just Danny Boy, the name, and it got me thinking how, changing your name, like getting a new name that is easier for Americans to remember is a form of assimilation. But in that process, I think it does kind of change your identity a bit, right? Because with the original, like for example, of Vietnamese name, that has a certain meaning, like it was chosen for your family. And I think obviously people that choose to change their name, what I've noticed, at least in my family, is the person chooses a new name on their own. They don't have like, you know, like at birth, obviously you can't choose your name, right? Your parents choose it. But when you're older, you can choose a specific name that best represents you. And I feel like then you kind of take on almost like two identities by having two names. Yeah.